In 1989, Japanese police stepped into an ordinary room in a Tokyo suburb. What they saw inside made seasoned detectives shudder. 6,000 videotapes covering the windows all the way to the ceiling. A labyrinth of plastic and magnetic tape, hiding something. Inhuman. Japan, Saitama Prefecture, the late 1980s. For the rest of the world, this was a time of neon lights, the rise of technology, and a frantic economic bubble. But in the shadow of these lights, in the quiet suburbs of Tokyo, something was brewing that would forever change the collective psyche of the Japanese people. We're used to thinking of monsters as coming from without. But this monster grew up in a very ordinary Japanese family. His name was Tsutomu Miyazaki, and before the world came to know him as the Otaku killer, he himself would come to feel like a creature with no place among humanity. Before we continue, I want to say one small thing. If this video resonated with you and you want to see more stories like this, please support the channel. Your subscription and like are a quiet but incredibly important support that inspires us to create new videos for you. Thank you for being here. And now, let's continue. It all began in 1962. Tsutomu was born prematurely, and it was as if nature had forgotten to finish its work. His hands, they were deformed. The radial bones of his forearms had fused together so that the boy physically could not turn his palms toward the sky. His hands were always fixed in one position, palms down, half bent, reminiscent of a rodent's paws. Imagine a child who can't accept a gift with both open palms. A child who can't hug the way others do. School became his first circle of hell. Children are the cruelest judges. They didn't see him as a disabled person deserving of compassion. They saw him as a rat man. They teased him for his gait, for his strange, stiff hands. Tsutomu quickly learned the most important lesson of his life. The world is a hostile place, and to survive in a hostile place, you need to know how to hide. He began to hide in corners. He stopped looking people in the eye. His gaze became fleeting, quick, searching for a crack through which to slip without being noticed. It was then that his first hole began to form in his mind. Silence awaited him at home. His father was a successful businessman, the owner of a newspaper. A man of the old school, he considered his son's physical disability a disgrace, a crack in the family's perfect facade. His mother was always busy. Tsutomu was left to his own devices. The only person who truly loved him was his grandfather. Only in his presence did Tsutomu feel human, not a mutant. His grandfather was his only connection to reality. But this connection was fragile. By the mid-1980s, Tsutomu had gone completely underground. His room in his parents' house became a technological cocoon. He began collecting videotapes, thousands of them. Anime, horror films, news recordings. The shelves grew, blocking windows, blocking doors, blocking life itself. He spent days and nights in this darkness. The light from the screen replaced the sun. In this labyrinth of plastic and magnetic tape, he was king. Here, his hands mattered not. Here, he could be anyone. In May 1988, Tsutomu's grandfather died, and at that moment, the last thread holding Miyazaki to the side of light snapped. Deep depression mixed with nascent madness. He began to believe that his grandfather could be brought back, that death was simply a videotape that could be rewound. But for this, a sacrifice was required. A pure, innocent life that would nourish his black emptiness with energy. In August 1988, when the heat in Tokyo became unbearable, The rat man emerged from his hole for the first time to truly hunt. August 1988. Saitama Prefecture sweltered. At this time, Japanese families usually head to festivals or the seaside. But 4-year-old Mari Kono was simply playing near her home. She was small, trusting, and completely unaware that she was being watched from the window of an old gray sedan. Tsutomu Miyazaki sat behind the wheel, clutching the steering wheel with his deformed fingers. For him, Mari wasn't human. She was a component, a detail necessary for his insane ritual to resurrect his grandfather. Mari's disappeared in broad daylight. At that point, the investigation reached a dead end. But if the police knew what was happening behind the closed doors of Miyazaki's room during those hours, the police were exhausted, combing the forests and parks, but Saitama remained silent. Tsutomu returned to his lair, to that very room, littered with cassette tapes. There, in the flickering light of television screens, he committed his first murder. But the most terrifying thing wasn't the act itself. The worst came afterward. Miyazaki began documenting the deaths. He took photographs, filmed them, and jotted down notes. He transformed the tragedy into content for his own twisted personal collection. Several months passed. The Kono family was beginning to lose hope when a package appeared on their doorstep. An ordinary shoebox. Inside were ashes and fragments of charred bones. A note composed of cut-out newspaper letters was attached. Marie, bones, cremation, examine. It wasn't a ransom. It wasn't a demand. It was pure, distilled mockery. The rat man wanted to be noticed. He wanted to see his victims writhe in pain even after they were no longer alive. He followed a single pattern, slowly driving through residential areas in his gray sedan. He targeted the youngest girls, 4 to 7 years old, who were momentarily unattended. Thanks to his plain, almost pathetic appearance and quiet voice, he didn't frighten the children. He lured them into his car, promising to show them something interesting or give them a ride. In almost all cases, the cause of death was asphyxiation. He did this in his car or in the woods. For him, the very moment of transition from life to death was an object of recording. He often recorded sounds or filmed the process. Miyazaki didn't discard the bodies immediately. He turned them into part of his collection. He brought the bodies to his room or to remote wooded areas where he staged photo sessions. He dressed the victims, posing them in certain positions, imitating sleeping children. The case documented instances of him consuming body parts. In particular, he claimed to have drunk the blood of one of the girls. He believed he was thus absorbing their life force to transfer it to his deceased grandfather. To dispose of evidence and simultaneously continue his game, he dismembered the bodies. He burned Mari Kono's remains in the forest, then collected the ashes and bone fragments in a box to send to her parents. More disappearances followed in the fall and winter. Masami Yoshizawa, Erika Namba. Each crime was more daring than the last. Miyazaki began playing God. He sent letters to newspaper editors, signing himself with a female name, Kaneda Yuko. In these letters, he mused about death, about how the children were now safe and happy. His mind was completely fractured. 2 beings lived in his head: the pathetic, downtrodden Tsutomu, who was afraid of his own shadow, and the all-powerful killer who dictated the terms of his rule to all of Japan. Miyazaki didn't simply end lives, he turned them into a chronicle. While the entire country searched for children, he edited videos in his labyrinthine room, where the line between reality and his morbid fantasies was completely blurred. He believed that death was a resource. He believed that the deaths of little girls would create some kind of energetic bridge across which his grandfather could return to the world of the living. For him, the real world and the world of videotapes merged. He treated bodies like dolls or props for his movies. He genuinely didn't understand the value of human life, seeing sacrifices as merely a way to fill his inner emptiness. He felt invulnerable. He believed his labyrinth of videotapes would protect him from reality. He continued to kidnap children, bringing them to his home, where his parents slept peacefully behind the wall, unaware that their son had turned their family home into a slaughterhouse. But every labyrinth has a way out. And Tsutomu, intoxicated by his own impunity, began making mistakes. The rat became too careless. She began to emerge into the light too often. July 1989. A hot afternoon in a Tokyo park. Tsutomu Miyazaki, convinced of his invisibility, makes a fatal mistake. He tries to lure another victim into his car, a little girl whose sister had stepped away for literally a minute. But this time, everything went wrong. The girl's father was nearby. He wasn't a police officer. He didn't know about the serial killer. He simply saw a strange, twitchy man with deformed hands trying to take a photo of his daughter. Miyazaki fled. The rat man scurried through the park, trying to hide in the bushes, but he was caught. Ordinary vandalism? Attempted harassment? The Saitama police didn't yet know who exactly they had in handcuffs. Everything changed when the detectives crossed the threshold of his room. What they saw would later be called Otaku's nest. 6,000 tapes, piles of magazines obscuring the light from the windows, and amid this chaos, recordings of his own crimes, photographs of the victims, clothes belonging to missing girls. Police officers who had witnessed hundreds of deaths emerged from this room, covering their mouths with handkerchiefs. Japan shuddered. The word otaku, which had once meant only a harmless fan, instantly became synonymous with monster. Society saw its own reflection in Tsutomu Miyazaki's mirror, a generation of lonely, withdrawn people living in a world of fictional images. During interrogations, Tsutomu acted distant. He drew strange creatures in the margins of the reports. He claimed that it wasn't he who committed the crimes, but the rat man living inside him, or his alter ego, a woman named Yuko. Psychiatrists debated for years. Was he insane or simply infinitely lonely and angry? The court returned its verdict. Tsutomu Miyazaki was fully aware of his actions. He was found guilty of 4 murders and sentenced to death. He spent nearly 20 years on death row, in a cell even smaller and quieter than his tape-strewn room. The labyrinth narrowed to 4 concrete walls. June 17, 2008. Early morning. In Japan, executions are not announced in advance. The condemned are informed of their death an hour before the execution. Tsutomu was led from the cell. His hands, still deformed, were cuffed behind his back. The last thing he felt was the rough rope around his neck. His death did not close the case. It left a scar on the entire country. We still ask ourselves, was Tsutomu Miyazaki an anomaly, a freak of nature? Or was he a product of a society accustomed to ignoring those who live in the shadows? The rat man is gone, leaving behind only ashes and thousands of blank videotapes. But his story reminds us, the most dangerous monsters are those who hide in plain sight for years, behind the closed doors of the most ordinary rooms.